My daughter-in-law was filming me while I set the table, and she posted it with the caption, "Our live-in maid. At least she's good for something." My son didn't stick up for me. He just hit it with a laughing emoji. I didn't argue. I just left. The next morning, her card got declined at the grocery store. That was the first thing I took back. By the end of the week, she was going to learn the difference between living in my house and owning it. I was folding the white napkins next to the plates. The Sunday pot roast was already resting on the counter, filling the kitchen with that warm, savory smell. My daughter-in-law, Tara, stood in the doorway, phone pointed right at me. At first, I figured she was filming the nice table setting. Then I heard her voice, loud and clear. "Our live-in maid. At least she's good for something." She let out a little laugh and tapped her screen. I froze mid-motion. Our eyes met, but she just shrugged and turned away. A few minutes later, I was sitting in the kitchen opening the app on my own phone. The video was already up. The caption was exactly what she'd said, right underneath it. I saw the notification my son Derek had commented. Just one crying, laughing emoji. I didn't feel a stab in my chest. What I felt was this strange, ice-cold clarity. To them, I wasn't family anymore. I was free labor. A year earlier, they'd moved into the upstairs bedrooms to save for their own place. Since then, I'd quietly taken over the whole household. I stood up, grabbed my coat off the hook, picked up my purse, and walked out without saying a word. I locked the front door softly behind me, got in my car, and drove to a quiet little bed and breakfast on the edge of town. I needed space. I didn't cry, I just thought. The next morning, I was sitting on the little balcony off my room with a cup of coffee. The winter sun was bright. My phone buzzed on the wooden table. A text from Tara popped up. Why was my card declined? I'm standing here with a full cart at checkout. It was the extra debit card I'd given her for shared groceries. Without hesitation, I opened my banking app and confirmed what I had done the night before. The card was already blocked. I didn't reply. I set the phone down, breathed in the cold morning air, and sliced into my croissant. Seconds later, the phone rang again. Around noon, I drove home. The second I unlocked the front door, I heard quick footsteps in the hall. Tara stood there, arms crossed, face flushed. "What the hell was that this morning?" she snapped. I looked like an idiot at the register. "Did you forget to raise the limit or something?" I calmly took off my coat and hung it on the hanger. "No," I said, evenly. I canceled the card. Derek came out of the living room looking tired the way he always did when things got tense. "Mom, you can't just do that." "How are we supposed to shop?" I turned to him. "With your own money, Derek. That card was for occasional stuff, not your everyday expenses while you live here rent-free. I'm not carrying that anymore." I held out my hand. "I'd like the card back now." Tara huffed, dug through her purse, and tossed the plastic card onto the little entry table. All this drama over one stupid video. It was just a joke for my friends. It was your idea of a joke, I said, matter-of-factly. "And this is my card. I don't need the jokes, and you don't need my card." I walked past them into the kitchen. Instead of making the big family lunch like usual, I heated up a single bowl of soup, sat at the little kitchen table, and ate alone. Derek hovered in the doorway, waiting for me to ask if he wanted some. I kept eating in silence. After a few minutes, he turned and left. That afternoon, I sorted laundry. I used to carry their baskets down to the basement for them. Today, I left Tara and Derek's basket right where it was in the hallway. Later, while I sat on the sofa reading a book, my eyes kept drifting to the empty shelves in the kitchen. Tomorrow, even more would change. 2 days passed in an oddly peaceful quiet. I cooked only for myself, loaded only my own dishes in the dishwasher, and wiped down only the surfaces I used. Wednesday morning, Derek appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding a wrinkled shirt, looking lost. "Mom, you haven't done the laundry yet. I need this blue shirt for a meeting this afternoon." I glanced up from my newspaper and took a sip of tea. "Your laundry basket is still in the upstairs hall, Derek. The washing machine in the basement is free. You know how it works." He blinked, confused. "But you always do it on Wednesdays for all of us." "Tara doesn't have time, she's got her workout class later." "I'm retired, Derek, but I'm not the hired help. If Tara has time to go to the gym, she has time to run a washing machine. Or you can do it." I turned the page. He sighed loudly, muttered something I couldn't catch, and stomped down the basement stairs. Later, I heard Tara upstairs complaining loudly. She came down, ignored me completely, and slammed the front door on her way out. It was a small win, but an important one. They were starting to feel that my help wasn't automatic. That afternoon, I walked through the house and really noticed how much they'd spread into my space. Tara's fancy magazines were all over my coffee table. Derek's sneakers blocked the entryway. They treated the downstairs like their personal living room while I kept retreating. That ended today. I gathered up the magazine shoes and empty coffee mugs, put everything in a big basket, and set it right outside their bedroom door upstairs. Then I dragged my old, comfortable wingback chair out of the guest room and placed it in the best spot in the living room, right by the big window. I sat down and enjoyed the view. That's when I heard the key in the lock. Tara was back. Tara stopped in the living room doorway and stared. I was settled in my wingback feet, up reading peacefully. "What's that old chair doing here?" she asked sharply. "It doesn't even match the couch. We wanted the living room light and modern." "We," I said calmly, not looking up from my book. "This is my house, Tara. I like the chair by the window, and I put your things in a basket outside your door. From now on, please keep them in your own rooms." She opened her mouth, closed it again, then stomped upstairs. A minute later, I heard her on the phone voice, shrill. I couldn't make out the words and didn't care. I finished my chapter and went out to the garden to get the rose beds ready. That evening, when Derek got home, the tension was thick. He came into the kitchen while I was making myself a sandwich. He looked nervous, running his hand through his hair. "Mom Tara's really upset. Can't you cut her some slack? We all live here together." "Exactly, Derek. We live here together. But you're my guests who don't pay rent. I've been cutting slack for a whole year. Now I'm cutting some for myself." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "We were actually going to talk to you about summer vacation. You always help us with the travel fund. We already found this great beach house." I wiped the knife and put it in the drawer. "Not this year. I'm keeping my money for me. I've got some small renovations planned around the house." Derek's eyes widened. "But we were counting on that. Without your part, we can't afford it." "Then you'll have to book something smaller," I said kindly, picking up my plate. The next morning, I called the handyman. The handyman showed up at 8 sharp. Derek and Tara were still asleep when he quietly walked through the downstairs. I didn't have him redo the bathroom or kitchen. My request was simpler. I had solid new locks put on my bedroom door and my home office door. Lately, Tara had gotten into the habit of walking into my rooms like they were hers, borrowing my hand cream hunting for wrapping paper, or just dropping stuff she didn't want in her way. My privacy had basically disappeared. When the handyman finished, he handed me 2 shiny sets of keys. I thanked him, paid in cash, and immediately locked my office. I slipped the key deep into my pocket. Around 10, Tara shuffled into the kitchen, still half asleep, and poured herself coffee. As she walked down the hall with her mug, I heard her try the handle on my office door. She rattled it, then rattled harder. "Is this door stuck?" she called out. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, relaxed. "No. It's locked." She spun around. "Locked? Why?" "Because it's my private space," I said calmly. "I don't want you two going in my rooms without asking anymore. Your area is completely upstairs." She snorted. "That's ridiculous. We're family." "What are you hiding in there anyway?" "My peace and quiet," I said shortly, turning back to unload the dishwasher. Tara stomped upstairs. I knew Derek would try to smooth things over that night. But there was nothing to smooth over. There were just new, clear rules. And the next rule involved the garage, which was packed floor to ceiling with their unused boxes. I put on sturdy shoes. It was time. That afternoon, I opened the big garage door. Cold light spilled across a wall of brown moving boxes, old furniture, and sports gear. When they moved in, they'd promised to sort it all soon. That day never came. My own car had been sitting out on the street in the rain for months while their stuff stayed dry. I wheeled a small cart out from the garden shed and started moving things out, box by box, chair by chair. I didn't put anything on the street that would have been rude. Instead, I stacked everything neatly under the big covered carport in the backyard. It was protected from the weather, but no longer took up my space. After 3 hours of hard but satisfying work, I swept the garage floor. Then I grabbed my keys and parked my car right in the middle. The soft click of the automatic garage door closing sounded like music. When Derek got home from work and saw the towers of boxes, he stormed straight into the living room. "Mom, why is all our stuff outside?" "It can't stay there." I sat in my wingback, sorting old photos. "You're right, Derek. You'll need to move it to the attic or get rid of it this weekend. I need my garage back for my car starting now." "But we don't have time this weekend," he said, frustrated. "We're going to a birthday party." "That's too bad." I answered without raising my voice. "Then you'll have to handle it tonight after work. The carport is just temporary." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. The woman who used to quietly fix everything and make space was now calmly asking for responsibility. The next morning, I watched Tara angrily stuff a trash bag into the bin. They stubbornly refused to talk to me. But Sunday brought a new surprise in the kitchen. Sunday mornings are for quiet breakfasts. When I walked into the kitchen at 8, I noticed right away that something was off. The big fridge looked emptier. I opened the door. My favorite cheese was gone, along with my yogurt and the fresh rolls I'd bought the day before. In their place was a little note in Tara's handwriting. "We decided to keep our food strictly separate since you want everything separate now. We took some of yours this morning because we hadn't shopped yet. We'll settle it later." I just smiled. It was such an obvious attempt to provoke me. Instead of making a scene, I got dressed and went for a long walk. When I came back late morning, they had taken over the kitchen making scrambled eggs and hogging the stove. They ignored me on purpose. I didn't say a word. I went into my office, opened my laptop, and ordered a small, quiet fridge. It arrived the next day, and the delivery guys put it straight in my office. That afternoon, I drove to the gourmet market, bought fresh salmon, good cheese, nice vegetables, and a bottle of white wine. I put it all in my new private fridge and carefully locked my office door. When Derek and Tara came home hungry that evening, they opened the big kitchen fridge. It was almost empty, except for their few things. I heard Derek call out, "Mom, didn't you go shopping?" I stood in the hallway and looked at him calmly. "You wanted things strictly separate. I thought that was a great idea. I shopped for myself. My food stays in my room from now on." Tara walked up, her face hardening. You're keeping food in your room. Just mine, I said. You're adults. You'll figure it out. I turned away, but the real test was still coming that weekend. It was Friday night. I was enjoying a glass of wine in my chair when I heard car doors outside. I looked out the window and saw Tara's parents walking up the driveway with two small, rolling suitcases. Tara opened the door with a big smile. Derek stood beside her, looking uneasy. No one had told me. Tara led her parents straight into the downstairs area. Come on in, make yourselves comfortable. The guest room is right here, I heard her say, cheerfully. I stayed seated. I knew exactly what was about to happen. Tara marched up to the guest room door and turned the handle. Nothing. She tried again, rattling it. Locked. She spun toward me, her smile gone. Did you lock this door? Yes, I said, calmly, standing up to greet her parents politely. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. Nice to see you. Did you have a good drive? They nodded, looking a little confused. Tara stepped closer, lowering her voice to a hiss. Open the door. My parents are staying the whole weekend. Where are they supposed to sleep? I looked at her completely relaxed. You should have asked me ahead of time, Tara. The guest room isn't available anymore. I turned it into my new craft room. You can't be serious, she said louder. You can't just send my parents away. I'm not sending anyone away, I replied evenly. But if you invite guests, you need to host them in your own space. You have that big living area upstairs with a pull-out couch. I'm sure they'll sleep just fine there. Derek's face turned red. Tara's parents stared awkwardly at the floor. Without another word, Derek picked up the suitcases and carried them upstairs. Tara glared at me, but followed silently. The house was mine again. And Monday morning I would take the final clear step. The weekend was surprisingly quiet. Tara's parents mostly stayed upstairs or went on long day trips. The pull-out couch clearly wasn't as comfortable as the old guest room. Sunday afternoon, they said a rather cool goodbye to me and left. The moment their car pulled away, Derek came out to the garden where I was deadheading the hydrangeas. Mom. What happened Friday was really awkward. Tara's been crying, she's so mad. You could have at least warned us. I set down the garden shears and looked him straight in the eyes. Funny thing about warnings, Derek. You two have been living here like it's a hotel and I'm the staff. You use the electricity, water, heat, and my patience. That's over. I pulled a folded envelope from the pocket of my cardigan and handed it to him. He took it hesitantly. What's this? A standard rental agreement, I said calmly. For the upstairs. Nothing crazy, just fair market rate for the square footage plus your share of the utilities. Starts the 1st of next month. He stared at the envelope like it was poison. Rent. But we're saving for a house. If we pay rent here, it'll take years longer. Then you'll have to adjust your plans. Like every other grown adult. I picked up my shears again. Read it over. If you sign, I'll be glad to have you as tenants. If not, you have 3 months to find your own place. Derek stood frozen. For the first time, I saw that he finally understood how serious this was. He couldn't argue, couldn't beg. It wasn't emotional blackmail, just a clear business boundary. He gave a tiny nod, turned, and walked slowly back inside. The conversation with Tara was going to be loud. The next few days, the house was filled with tense silence. No blow-ups, no nasty looks. Derek and Tara moved through the halls almost soundlessly on their way to work. I spent my time reading, taking long walks, and setting up my new craft room. Thursday evening, there was a soft knock on my office door. I opened it. Derek stood there holding the envelope. He handed it to me. We signed it, he said quietly. He looked tired, but somehow more grown up. We get it, Mom. We'll pay the rent on time. And I'm sorry. About the video. About all of it. I took the envelope. I didn't hug him, but I nodded kindly. Thank you, Derek. That's a good start. We're still looking for our own place, he added quickly. Tara thinks it'll be better if we have our own household. Completely. I think that's a very smart decision, I answered honestly and closed the door. In the weeks that followed, they actually started packing boxes. Our interactions stayed distant but polite. Tara never treated me like staff again. They paid their first month's rent, bought their own food, and did their own laundry. 4 months later, they moved out. They'd rented a small apartment on the other side of town, no beach house. On moving day, Derek handed me the keys to the upstairs. The house was perfectly quiet. It smelled like fresh coffee and my flowers. The next morning, I made breakfast, carried it to my wingback by the window, and sat down. Morning sunlight poured across the living room. No shoes left in the hall. No one expecting me to have lunch on the table. I took a sip of coffee, leaned back, and felt a deep, long-missed lightness fill my body. I wasn't the maid. I was just me, in my own house. They thought calling me the maid would put me in my place. But the house, the card, the food, the laundry, the garage, even the guest room, none of it had ever belonged to them. I didn't throw them out in anger. I gave them rules, rent, and responsibility. And in the quiet of my own living room, with one quiet cup of coffee in my hand, I finally understood. Respect isn't something you beg for in your own home. It's the lock on the door,